folks, Jonathan here. Hopefully you can hear me. Just wanted to go through a couple things. Got a couple notes here, but with years on them because I can't remember things like I used to. So, I wanted to talk to you about the Harrisburg engine. And I know some people had said, had asked about it being down in the woods where it was and stuff, how it got there, and you know why it would be in the woods where it's at. Okay, so there's a long story behind that engine that I haven't told, and I guess there's three ways of looking at it. You got the fact that it's a Harrisburg, and you got that part of the history, and then you got the part that is where that was actually used at originally, and what it was used for, and then that's part of the history. And then the other history is more current, recent history, and that's how it got from where it was in Winston-Salem at the factory to where it's at now, and of course coming to me. So here it goes. We're going to start with the most recent history, which would be the reason that it's sitting where it's sitting and what the issue is, you know, of why it's being moved. So that engine, and I can't tell you what year it was, but we're going to guess somewhere around 25 years ago, according to what I found on the internet. That engine was set up in Winston-Salem and at the original factory that it was put at. And there was a tornado that came through and tore up a warehouse building and causing the company to go out of business. The company was called Unique Furniture, or Unique Furniture Makers. Now, that wasn't the original name of the company that owned that engine and that installed that engine and bought it and built the factory. But you know, things change hands, companies change hands over the years. But so what happened? A antique tractor club and showgrounds in Reidsville, North Carolina, bought that engine, and I'm assuming they're the ones that actually moved it from Winston-Salem to Reidsville, to their showgrounds, which was north of Greensboro, North Carolina. And I don't know how long it sat there before Ron Gooden and you'll see him in the video, or you've seen him in the video of moving the generator. He was the one with the Tri-State Tractor shirt on. You'll see the Tri-State Tractor on the back. Anyway, so he bought that engine years back, and I guess he had somebody that was either helping him or working for him or with him at his showgrounds. He owns a showgrounds called Spokes and Cleats in Turnersburg, North Carolina. It's actually a Harmony, North Carolina address, but it's in Turnersburg, North Carolina. So he had taken and set it up, bought the concrete, and he actually told me that he was able to go back to the original spot in Winston-Salem where that engine was set up at to get the measurements for the concrete, which was kind of surprising because I don't know how long it was at Reidsville before he bought it, but he was able to go get the measurements, and they poured all the concrete and got that set up. And I think he told me that he thinks he had about 20 yards of concrete there. So you can imagine, what he spent just in concrete, getting everything set up. So something happened with the other guy. The other guy was more of a steam guy, and Ron wasn't. But I think my understanding is that he had gotten sick, and that is when they decided that they was not going to finish the engine or set the engine up. And that's when Ron, which is moving up in the years, and he's afraid it's going to get scrapped, and that was his biggest fear, is that either something would happen to him and there'd be an auction, or eventually just sit there until there was nothing left of it. It was no good anymore. So that's when I had heard about it, and I contacted him, and he sold it to me for what I think is a crazy low price. Let's put it that way. I think it was I think you're going to save this, and basically didn't charge me much at all, and I really appreciated it. And I really, on these steam engines, somebody had said something about not having one set up and getting another one and all, but if you're going to get them, you're not going to have to be able to wait This stuff don't come on the market that often. And when it comes on the market here lately, they've been going quick. There was a Tozer steam engine, which is a portable unit that was made in, I think it was Columbia, South Carolina, is where it was actually manufactured at. It might have been Charleston, South Carolina, but it was in South Carolina. But the Tozer unit went on Facebook Marketplace in the evening for $5,000. And I thought about it a little bit, and I looked at some of the comments of people talking about, that's an expensive yard art and all that. The next morning, because the ad said sawmill, I thought maybe it actually had a sawmill with it. Turns out it didn't. But I knew it used to run a sawmill, but I thought it had a sawmill with it. Well, it had wheels on it about like these. I don't know if you can see, you can see this yellow one. It had, the front wheels was about like that, and one of them was grown into the tree. So, it had to be cut out with a chainsaw and chisel and hammer, but they had listed it, like I said, for $5,000, and when I contacted the guy the next morning, it was already gone. So it sold that quick. And another stationary, really old one, S-curve flywheels. That sort of dates it, 1800s, late 1800s. I think this was an 1873 model engine. It wasn't a real big engine, but it was a stationary unit a guy had put on for sale. And I didn't get to see it until 2 days after he put it on, and I called him. And he was up in Ohio, and I said, I'm interested in the engine. And for the price he put, I would have just bought it and, got the money to him and then went and picked it up later. He said that it was already sold and that he sold it 2 days ago. And I said, okay. I said, well, how long have you had it listed on the computer? And he said, for 2 days. So he listed it, sold it the same day, and it's gone. So, like I said, they're getting harder and harder to get a hold of. So, that's the reason that it was down there where it was, and the reason that it wasn't set up all the way. It had never been ran on that spot. They've done a really good job and a fine job of setting everything up. And, it's just another situation to where I sure wish I could take the concrete. And Ron said the same thing, that, he wishes I could take the concrete too, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So we are going to get that engine here and just hold on to it. The Bates steam engine is actually going to get set up about where the camera's at right now, and that's one of the important things to me, is to get it set up. So, that was the engine that took me 25 years to get, that I really wanted. And, I saved it twice. I saved it once from the bulldozer. I saved it once from it getting, it was separated in 3 different places. So it's all together in one spot. A lot of the parts are behind me in the building, already cleaned, restored, painted, ready to go. So when it comes time to put that engine together, it's not going to be a terrible job. It's going to be foundations and concrete and, money. Everything comes down to money. All right, folks, so we covered the actual current history of the engine and how I got it and why it's where it's at. And it's shameful that it keeps getting moved around and not set up, but I'm just glad that it never got junked or crushed or stripped. There's a lot of copper in that engine. Far more copper or scrap value in copper than what I paid for the engine, and which means nothing to me because I would never scrap it. But okay, now to cover the history of the business that owned this engine. Now, I can't cover the history of the Harrisburg engine because I don't know enough about it. I've got to do some studying on that. To me, that's easier to find than finding the history of the company that owned it. Because when I come into this, besides Ron going to the old factory in Winston-Salem and telling me that it was across from the Bowman Gray Stadium, I had no clue of a name. I had no clue of a location besides that. I just knew it was a furniture factory, Winston-Salem, across from Bowman Gray Stadium. So with that, I was able to put some information on the internet, North Carolina History Hunters, and a fellow had shared the information to a Winston-Salem group. And luckily, some people in there knew of it. A fireman had fought a fire there, and I'm assuming there was maybe some people that worked there. I was really surprised to even get any history on it, and then the history I got on it, I was impressed with. I couldn't ask for a better history of an engine, really. I mean, I guess you could, but it's an interesting history, and I'm going to explain it to you. So, in 1854, the Spax Wagon Company, which also went by the Spax Brothers Wagon Company, and I guess it's spelled Spachs, and they also went by Spax Wagon Works, and I don't know if they changed it around or if that's how they had it listed, but they started business in 1854 building wagons. They're in Winston-Salem, and of course, wagons consist of blacksmithing and woodwork. And they've become a pretty famous, wagon builder, and there's information online about them. But 1928 is when they quit making wagons. But before that, in 1922, they sort of did a transition to making furniture. And at that time, it was only chairs. It wasn't any other furniture but chairs. And they were making 300 chairs a day. But to get a little bit more into it, in 1922, they started building a factory across from the wagon factory. And I'm going to show you a picture. And in this picture, this postcard picture, you will see on the right side, lower right side of the picture, there's like 4 buildings. That was the wagon works. To the left side, across the road, was a 40,000 square foot building that was actually the building that built the furniture. And if you'll see the smokestack there with the smoke coming out, that was the boiler room where the boiler that's sitting behind this engine that we're getting, that's where that boiler was at, and that smoke coming out of there would have been from that boiler, which I'm sure that's a lithograph or a picture of some sort, or a drawing or something. But yeah, the engine would have been sitting, below that tower there, not far from that boiler room. That is the factory that this engine ran. In 1922, when this was put in, I found a thing that they discussed putting in a cordless engine and buying a cordless engine. And, Skinner was one of the companies, but Harrisburg was another company that was using this Uniflow. And my understanding, and don't quote me on this because I haven't done enough studying on it, but it's my understanding that this was more efficient, but this was like the last updated version of a steam engine before they went to, or done away with steam engines or quit using them. And when they built this factory in 1922, everything about that factory, when it comes to the Harrisburg engine, all of the equipment, all the machines, they said was all roller bearing. There was no Babbitt bearings. It was all a 100% up-to-date factory, and they actually compared the factory to the Henry Ford factory as being, so up-to-date. And, it was a, big manufacturer for the South. They bought everything new. They built the factory new. The engine was new, up-to-date, the newest thing you could buy. So that was surprising because I did see the mention of a cordless that, that's what they had planned to do, and then they done this one. Now I found a newspaper article in 1922 where they actually took permit, I guess is what you would say, to build the boiler room and the engine room and to build the actual factory itself. So I actually found that information, and there's a lot of information about that company in 1922. There's not much after that. It looks like, from what I can tell, in 1933 they went and I guess, I don't know, they filed bankruptcy or they just went out of business, but I noticed that the company was up for sale at auction, and the factory, all the equipment, this engine, the location, everything, in 1933. Now, it was kind of crazy because one of the guys that was involved in this, his last name was Creech, and he was over the sale of the, all the factory and all the equipment. But later on, this company became Unique Furniture, and I noticed that he was the CEO of Unique Furniture. So, there's a lot of inside things that go on, that if a company goes into bankruptcy, there's always that possibility that the same company buys it back. They just buy it under another name. And I mean, they're already into it. They know what's involved in it. So there's a chance that that's what could have happened. But anyway, it was kind of refreshing to me for this engine to have come from a company that actually built wagons. When this was started, it wasn't called the Unique Furniture Company or Unique Furniture Makers. I've seen it listed as both. It was actually called the Winston-Salem Chair Company. So that's actually what it was, Winston-Salem Chair Company. And I'm assuming that it changed to the Unique in '33. That's my assumption. I found some, it mentioned Unique after that. And like I said, supposedly 25 years ago is when it went out, and it was still Unique then. And the furniture that I found online that was made by them was really, really high-end furniture. So I've even seen a bedroom suite for $13,000. So way more than I can afford. And I figure furniture out of rough cut lumber is probably the best. So anyway, 250 kW. An average house, if you was really, running hard, would be, you could run on a 10 kW with no problem, and you could probably get by with a 5 kW. So anywhere between 25 and 50 houses you could run with this generator. I want to run every Christmas light I can find. I was joking with a friend of mine, and I said, how many Christmas lights do you think it'll run? And he told me that it would run them all the way over the mountain and back. And I don't know which mountain he's talking about, because we ain't got any mountains around here, but I would say that we could run some lights with it, and that's what I would love to do. I'd love to set it up. I don't know if that boiler is any good. I don't know if it's going to pass inspection or anything. We can try and, have it checked. And if it does, it does. I guess, it's been years ago since it's been used, so it may not. But I was told by Ron that if I did not get the boilers, they were going to be scrapped. So I'm going to get the boilers, and without intentions to scrap them. Definitely without intentions to scrap the one that came with the engine. It's part of the history of the engine, and we're going to keep it with it. The other one, the other boiler that's there came from Mocksville, a company called Rand, which I'm sure everybody's heard of that. There's a factory there that builds air compressors. That was where that boiler was at, and they actually gave that boiler to him. But I don't care to get rid of, I don't care to scrap nothing. Anything historical, I don't really want to scrap. If I don't do something with it, somebody else will. I read an article years ago about towing, and there's a little deal that we basically go by that says, get all the information you can get, and we'll figure out what to do with it later. In other words, VIN number, customer name, tag number, vehicle, all the information, everything you can get. You can't get too much information, but you can get too little information. So, and if you take that into consideration with anything you do, that's the best thing to do. There's always questions to be asked, but if you have the information already, sometimes you have the answers already. So, all right, appreciate everybody watching. And let me see, working on setting the boiler up today on the piers. So we get that set up. I'll put a video out on that. So till next time, bye.